So about a year ago, I did a video on how I use WordPress to write content for Textbroker. However, WordPress 5 have made quite a few changes in how that process is done. So I figured I'd do an update to that video and show you how the process is done. Well, I'm Michael with WriterSanctuary, and this is again how to use WordPress 5 for Textbroker content. So before we get started, don't forget the like button, and if you want to see more videos on freelance writing and Textbroker in general, just hit the subscribe button. And if you have any questions and concerns, leave them in the comments down below, or you can contact me on WriterSanctuary.com's website at the contact form. So if you haven't seen the video on using WordPress to write content for Textbroker, you can click on the link right here, but there's a few changes. First of all, the Jetpack spell checker doesn't work with Gutenberg blocks. And they're still working on that, so there's no ETA on when that'll be done. That's okay, because nowadays most web browsers have built-in spell checker anyway, and I also like using the Grammarly Chrome extension. And Grammarly does a really good job at finding content that is either misspelled or grammatically incorrect. So let's take a look at the WordPress layout nowadays. So in the previous video, I showed you how to install Yoast SEO, TinyMC Advanced, and WordFence. But this time around, we're going to add in a new feature called Disable Gutenberg, and I will explain why here in a moment. So if we go to Plugins, we go to Add New, we're going to look for Disable Gutenberg, and then you can install it and activate it. Or you can use the Classic Editor, which is what I use on this testing site. And install and activate that. Both plugins will do almost pretty much the same thing. It'll just remove the Gutenberg blocks and get you back to the original visual text editors for WordPress. Now this is important when you're writing for Textbroker, and I will show you why. Okay, so this is a test article that I wrote for this video, and it was written in visual. So you have all the text that you need. This is a short little 316 word brief little article for this video. And as you can see, Chrome is finding all kinds of spelling errors, but that's because those are proper names. And that's one of the things you'll have to deal with if you use a browser-based spell checker. So this is the original look of WordPress. And with Gutenberg blocks, you would have all these different blocks. And you can do this technique of moving content from WordPress to Textbroker using Gutenberg, but it is such a pain in the butt. Disabling it or going back to the Classic Editor is so much easier. So from this screen, I would go to Text, and from here you can see that WordPress has already added the H2s and the bullet list coding, and these are important for transferring over to Textbroker. So from here, I would just grab all of this text, copy it. You can either hit Control C or right click and copy, and then I would paste it directly into Textbroker. So now I've got all the H2 tags and the coding for bullet lists that will be apparent in the Textbroker editor. So what would this look like if I wanted to use Gutenberg? Okay, so we created a whole new article for testing in Gutenberg. Now if you didn't have the Disable Gutenberg plugin or the Classic Editor, you would probably just go ahead and type it out with the title, then you got your H2 headers, and then your context. So to do it, we would go over to the three buttons here on the top right, click that, and then switch to the code editor. Now as you can see in the code editor of Gutenberg, it adds all of the WP paragraphs, which means you would have to delete every one of these sections for Textbroker. That includes the paragraphs. This is because the Textbroker editor will add all the paragraph coding on its own once you submit the article. So if you're using Gutenberg, you'd have to delete all of this extra good fun stuff, which would take you a lot longer to create content. Now you can do it this way if you'd like, if you don't want to install the Disable Gutenberg plugin or the Classic Editor, but I found that it takes far longer to do an article in Textbroker if you have to get rid of all of this extra coding. It's important to know that this is for the WordPress.org platform, not WordPress.com, which is the free blogging platform. They have a completely different set of tools, and you might not get the same experience. I haven't used WordPress.com to write for Textbroker, so I don't know 100% if it's even viable. But since I have my own web host, I can create as many websites as I want, so there we go. So the only big two major changes from last year's videos are the lack of having a spell checker, which you can get with Grammarly or with using browsers like Google Chrome, and the Gutenberg block system, which kind of puts a hinder on creating content for Textbroker unless you disable it. So remember, you can either use disable Gutenberg or use the classic editor. Each one has their own benefits. It's pretty much the same thing. Personally, I'll use disable Gutenberg on half my sites and use classic editor on the other half just to see if there's any difference. And from what I can tell, not really. At least not for what I use it for. But that's how I copy content from WordPress to Textbroker nowadays after WordPress 5.0. Maybe someday in the future, Jetpack will fix the spell checker, but in the meantime, I really don't know if I need it now that I'm using Grammarly. And the Grammarly Chrome extension is free, and you can just install it as you go. Another way you can do it is that Grammarly also has an online app where you can copy and paste text into their system, and then they'll show you all the different spelling errors and grammatic mistakes that you made. So either way, it's a decent system. So in what ways do you use WordPress? Leave the comments down below. I use WordPress as one hell of a massive word processing unit, and it also powers all my websites. I've been a big WordPress fan since 2008. Actually, in 2008, I started off with Joomla, but then Joomla 2.5 pissed me off, and then I decided to give WordPress a try, and I haven't looked back since. Just make sure you keep all your websites updated. But if you found the video informative, hit the like button. If you want to learn more about Textbroker, freelance writing, WordPress, or anything else that I cover, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. I think that's going to do it for me today. I'll see you tomorrow.